Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is The Take for Market Rebellion on a Tuesday morning. And boy, we're just picking up right where we left off on Monday. And actually, if you look back to last week, a nice strong week last week. But looking back to Monday, we had opening indications. Market looked like it was going to be up about 100 points. Well, it actually ended up being opening around 120. We immediately jumped to 250 points on the Dow to the upside. Sat there for the majority of the day until the very tail end of the day, where we did the usual theme, which is to start coasting up a little bit higher and accelerating to the upside. And we had a nice, big, solid move, finishing up about 350 points yesterday. So a nice, big, strong day for the Dow. Now, the industrials were certainly led by a lot of different areas, but it was the stocks specifically that are in the industrial space, like a Raytheon, Dow, Boeing, Caterpillar. Those names were definitely powering the move in the Dow to the upside. And throw in some energy. Chevron, Exxon moving to the upside. By the way, oil services also had a really nice day yesterday, up about 4% or so. We talk about those being the beta play. So you can look over, you see something like a Chevron or an Exxon moving up 2.5%, call it. But then all of a sudden you look over at those services names, you talk about that beta, talk about a 4% move on the OIH, but Baker Hughes, Halliburton, National Oil Well Varco, Transocean. Those are the kind of names that seem to have that extra bit of torque on these big positive names for days for the energy space. Now, the NASDAQ, on the other hand, a little bit of a different story. Now, that was in the red for the majority of the session, actually finishing down, call it anywhere between 40 and 50 points to the downside. Some of the various names in there that were sort of pulling on the markets at least a little bit. You had Zoom and Tesla. You had some of the biotechs with Vertex and Regeneron and Biogen. But generally, just a little bit of a pull. Nothing major going on necessarily on the NASDAQ, but certainly just a pull to the downside and kind of a group pull to the downside. AMD, Facebook, after huge spikes over the last couple of weeks, especially Facebook even last week, hitting that 278 level and then starting to pull back a little bit further of a pullback. But some of the strength in the S&P and obviously in the NASDAQ as well, coming from some of these casino names. We had a really great strength yesterday in Wynn, but a huge spike in MGM. Now, it's interesting because MGM made a big move yesterday, and a lot of folks maybe are looking back and saying, wow, this is a move that's been very, very strong. What a great performance. About 16%. That's a really great move, and it is. That's a huge move. But the options indications just from last Thursday, when the options are trading somewhere 70 cents, 80 cents, somewhere in that sort of a ballpark, actually going and trading over $3, $4, $5, that's the massive move. That's what we're here for. That's why we trade options. We talk about it all the time. It's a risk management side of the business and risk reward. So you know exactly how much risk you have on the table, and the potential for that incredible reward is there. So that's something that the more understanding, and knowledge is king, we bring that up all the time. That's the difference between a 16% move and a multi-100% move to the upside, and with that leverage. So that's what really does thrill us and gets me excited each and every day, gets John excited and all the guys at Market Rebellion, because our primary focus is truly on how can we use the options in our best favor to work best for us, whether that means a buy right or whether that means individual options or spreading options, all these various categories that do stick out. I'm going to jump real forward for a second and talk about volatility, which continues to contract and continues to pull back in, but also volume. Now, we talked about last Friday, that huge volume, and I mentioned it yesterday. We talked about 35 million plus contracts. Is actually over 35.1 million contracts trading on a summer on Friday. Absolutely extraordinary. Well, yesterday, again, we were over 30 million contracts again. And we'd started off a little bit slower when we look at August, but starting to pick up, and we've seen multiple days now early on in these first couple of weeks of trade in August, and we're seeing some huge volumes, over 30 plus million already, which really does stand out. That's been something very impressive. Now, I brought up some of those casinos, but also airlines yesterday. United, American. People are talking about more traveling. Now, that doesn't mean it's come back all the way. Don't try to don't want to overread this whole thing. I just want to keep it fairly simple. people are getting back on airplanes. We're talking about numbers that are starting to rise at least a little bit and improving. And that's something that a lot of people have been looking forward to and will be affecting when I bring up what's going on in today's market. But this is the setup from yesterday. So yes, industrials were up about a little over 2% yesterday. Financials had a great day, fluttering around that 25 level for the XLF. You had oil, gold, and silver all higher and moving to the upside. This has been a drumbeat that's been playing for a long time. Some changes there maybe as well. Microsoft did stand out though. Microsoft, a little bit of struggles here and there. And I bring that up because obviously TikTok. And as people are trying to analyze this whole situation, and Microsoft has actually been pulling off a little bit, but we've seen a little bit of more of a positive reaction because of all this TikTok talk, because of what we're seeing in a Facebook, for instance, with Reels and possibilities of maybe other suitors. And maybe that's Twitter. Could be anybody, but those are kind of the names that so far have been brought up. Now, Micron, yesterday, that was our unusual option activity. If you followed that very closely, that had a huge spike yesterday, got up towards that strike we were talking about. Stock was trading about 48.5, spiked up to 49.5. That was the strike that people were buying. Those options already had a very nice, strong, powerful move yesterday in terms of where they were early on into the rest of the day as the market, or at least that stock, Micron, was moving to the upside. So today we start off today with a lot of optimism about vaccines and a lot of this talk with Russia and how much can we believe, how much can we read into this whole thing. That's certainly been a topic all morning as everybody's been looking at this, because have they lowered the bar to get over it, or is this something of real promise? And that's really the discussions that are going on today. That being said, market's reacting pretty nicely because in the pre-market, we were up well over 300 points on the Dow. Actually started to even get a little bit higher than that, to the middle 300s. We started the day as the bell rang, about 350 points to the upside. We've pulled back a little bit. Right now, trading about 280 points to the upside. So call it a 1% move. That's great. NASDAQ, completely dislocated from what we are seeing happening right now in the Dow, because you look over at the NASDAQ, it's negative. It's down 0.6% or 65 points right now. It was indicated around that area. It was indicated down about 55 points, so not a lot of movement since. But I will say this. Gold, silver, oil had been moving just nicely to the upside, particularly gold and silver, really on that explosive move. Oil made a move, and then it's been paused for a while, and it's been trading between, call it 40 and 43. Well, oil having a pretty nice day today, but gold, a little bit of pressure, makes some sense. A lot of all the enthusiasm of what potentially could be happening, and that's where the Dow was moving to the upside with this vaccine possibility. Some of that quote unquote, if you want to call it a safety trade, a little bit of pressure today on gold, down about 4%. Matter of fact, silver down about 7%. Still, given the huge run-up that these have both had to the upside, this is a fairly minor pullback, but something worth keeping an eye on, especially gold, because we talked about that 2,000 level, and here we are right around in those levels, actually trading about 1955 for gold last I looked. So volatility still trading around 21. The 10-year with a nice powerful move, at least early on, up about 10%. So that was something, trading about 0.63. So a little bit of a move as we're watching different elements of everybody of the analysis of the markets and the strengths underneath and all the rest of it. So the early indications, they look like they're holding in there. I'm looking at the Dow. Now it's trading right around 300, but NASDAQ slipping a little bit more, another 10 points to the downside. So in the Dow, what's really powering it? Well, start with the industrials. So Boeing, that's the leader. It's up about 5%, but you still have CAT, you have Dow, you have 3M, you have Raytheon, all moving to the upside, all fairly powerful. And let's not forget about energy as well. We brought up that yesterday as one of the areas that was powering the markets, at least to the upside. I'm looking right now at Exxon, that was up about 3%, along with Chevron. Nice move there. Obviously, the OIH up about 3%. So the energy space definitely participating right now. JP Morgan up about 4%. Now, JP Morgan, we talked about, can it get back over 100 and can it hold? Well, we're over 100 now, and the question is, can it hold? But here we are now about 105, so a nice, powerful move, short-term move from Jamie Dimon, maybe being on TV a fair amount and people listening to what he has to say and some of the backdrop of what's going on. But add into that Goldman Sachs and American Express, and you got a pretty good idea of why the market's right now and on the Dow up about 300 points. So we're seeing a lot of really interesting trades on the positive and the negative side with the NASDAQ. And the NASDAQ's definitely getting dragged down, as I mentioned, about 80 points to the downside. But that doesn't mean everything. When you look over and you see some of the casinos, I'm looking right now, I see Wynn, I see Bookings, I see Expedia, travel related, obviously. Those all looking pretty good. Airlines as well, American, United, looking pretty strong. However, the weakness is really coming from a lot of that stay-at-home trade that has been part of this huge move that we've watched in the recovery and the driving force behind some of the NASDAQ. Zoom, Take-Two, Activision, PayPal, those kind of names are definitely the stay-at-home names that are actually pulling down the markets a little bit, the weaker side of the NASDAQ. So something definitely to keep an eye on. So we get to this point all the time. We always want to talk about travel. I just brought up airlines. I talked about the industrials. I talked about Boeing being the leader. Boeing really standing out right now in terms of unusual option activity. Now, we had all kinds of craziness going on earlier today because of these huge, those windstorms, if you heard about those, wailing through the Midwest and going right through Chicago and all the rest of that. So a little bit of issues there, but everything's up and running. Everything's running smooth now. And I can tell you, what was the first thing that jumped off the page to me? Boeing. And Boeing, the activity there, strong right out of the gate, one of the leaders in terms of volume. But how about this for volume? Stock was trading about 184, pretty nice. You look at the buyer of 18,000 of this week's expiring 190 calls. So 184, these are $6 out of the money. Paid about $250 all the way up to about $5. 18,000 of those were bought. Oh, by the way, that's not the end of it. We also had Boeing, they were buying 10,000 September 200 calls. So buying more time and more upside. So very, very aggressive. The size of the trade, when I say the size, not just the number of 10,000 and 18,000, but the dollar value of what they're buying. These are big dollar value size trades. So a big commitment to the idea that maybe Boeing's got a little bit more upside in the not too distant future. One in very short term, one a little bit further out. Give you a little idea of what people are, maybe the psyche of what people are thinking going forward with Boeing. And we've heard a lot of talk about this. If there's any positive reaction from the vaccines, obviously we could see travel start to pick up. That would be something obviously that transcends down towards Boeing as well. So that, just keep all of that in mind. It's not as complicated as it might sound, but I will tell you, we are seeing some huge option paper. And oh, by the way, one of the other areas that I saw a little bit of unusual option activity was in one of the airlines. I'll make you actually do a little bit of the work to find out what that is. I've already given you Boeing. Folks, knowledge is king. Understand the options world. I talked about this already, but if you can understand the risk reward and you can put that in your favor, it sure does give you better opportunities for success. But it starts with the knowledge, and you've got to have that. We got the best educators in the business. Check out Market Rebellion each and every day. Again, I want to throw a shout out also to all those people that are huge college football fans and all of the issues that are going on right now, all sorts of different ideas and all sorts of different opinions. But I like this movement that I'm seeing. We want to play, but I totally understand the safety side of it as well. But I'll tell you what, this is just an amazing time. And I'm praying for all these guys that they do the right thing and the schools do the right thing. But let's be as supportive as possible for people on both sides, people who want to play and those that don't want to play. This is a commitment that people really don't always fully understand. I did a big interview. We're going to put that up on Market Rebellion. Did an interview yesterday about 10 minutes long, just talking about this subject and how near and dear it is to me in my heart as well. Folks, have a great day of trading.